Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the first episode of our new opening series in which I would be teaching you some chess openings. Along with that, मैं खेलने वाला अपने viewers के साथ थोड़े बहुत games and all. And today we'll start with Queen's Gambit. And by the way, if you would like to participate in these kind of videos, you want to volunteer into it, so just comment down below. And yeah, without wasting much of your time, let's get started. Okay, so the Queen's Gambit officially starts with 1d4. A very common response would be pawn to d5. And the moment you play pawn to c4, इसको कहते हैं Queen's Gambit. Okay, so सबसे पहले ये समझते हैं what exactly are we trying to achieve? What's the objective? What's the goal? What's the idea we are trying? You see, you are sacrificing a pawn, a flank pawn, हमारी queen side पे, and the idea is to, let's say, if it takes back on c4, we play pawn to e4 and we have a very dominant control over the center. So that's the whole plan of Queen's Gambit. You're sacrificing a pawn to get some activity, and you know what, this is more of a positional line. I mean, naam mein Gambit hai, but it's not like England Gambit or Smith-Morra Gambit or something like that, जिसके अंदर तुम कुछ भी sacrifice कर रहे हो, तुम कुछ भी वो कर रहे हो. It's not like that. It's very calm, very sophisticated. And you know what, I am trying my best to position this video more on the idea base rather than going deep into the theories and all, so that ye beginners and intermediate friendly hoga. So now if you go back after move like pawn c4, there are so many different openings you might see. Black खेल सकता है. First of all, there is Queen's Gambit accepted, which we just saw. There is Queen's Gambit declined. There is Ragozin defense, Nimzo Indian. You would see Grunfeld. You would see something like Queen's Indian defense, King's Indian setups वगैरह होंगे, Slav, semi-Slav. But हर एक चीज़ का response ना बहुत ही ज़्यादा similar रहने वाला है. So you would basically get to know where does your pieces belong. You know what? Let's start with Queen's Gambit accepted first. So let's say he takes back on c4. I would recommend you going with pawn to e4. You capture the center, a great move. Now there are primarily two responses you might see. There is e5, hammering into the center, or also moves like pawn to b5. This under, you're just basically sticking back to the pawn. Let's say he plays something like e5. Okay, you would go with knight to f3, putting pressure on the pawn. Let's say bishop b4 check, knight c3, and यहाँ पे knight f6 आता है. You take back on c4, and you know what? These kind of position is something at a lower elo people would fumble a lot. So theoretically, the best move is to play something like e takes d4, knight d4, castles. You can castle as well, bishop into c3, bc3, knight e4, and you can play something like queen f3, and you claim that you have a better position with your bishops slightly active, your queens active as well, and it's a great move. But kabhi kabhar kya hota na, aise positions, even if they are very simple, people tend to blunder. Let's say bishop c4, you play something like knight e4. What's the difference? You're winning a pawn, right? I mean, queen e2, does it something work? Not really. You just play bishop into f7, a brilliant move. King takes, queen b3, and that's a fork. So Queen's Gambit accepted is a opening जो कि मैं तुम्हें पहले बता रहा हूँ, so that it's not really a great weapon if you are starting out as a beginner or intermediate level player. And sometimes you would see, let's say, people would go and play b5. This is like, you're just sticking back to the pawn. अब इसके लिए मैं तुम्हें recommend करता हूँ, you can start with something like pawn to e4. The idea is to hammer into the pawn chain, moves like c6. Then you can take on b5 and put your knight on c3. Now, अब यहाँ पे responses तो देखो बहुत सारे हैं. Bishop d7 खेल सकते हो तुम, queen b6 वगैरह ला सकते हो, बहुत सारे. But lower elo पे बहुत सारे lines आते हैं. People would play something like a6 as well. Now, knight b5. If you take, obviously your rook is hanging, but this is also a line apparently. Bishop b7, rook would go back, and e6 khelna is the right move. And also you can take on e4, not really the best move, but yeah, you are just getting back a pawn. तुम्हारे pieces वगैरह को develop कर पाना is slightly tricky. So this is also one of the lines. Okay, now let's try to look at Queen's Gambit declined. जब black pawn to e6 खेलता है, now he is not taking back, taking back on c4. You can play something like knight to f3. This is my recommendation, okay? First of all, knight c3 is like the main move, but hota kya hai na, if you play knight c3, there are many responses like bishop to b4, and that goes into a territory, into a domain where it's very, very theoretical and very, very, there's a lot to remember. So I recommend playing knight to f3, which is a much more standard and possession approach. So let's say a move like knight to f6, you develop your knight to c3. डिफरेंसेस है वो बहुत छोटी डिटेल्स वगैरह, नाइट c3 पहले क्यों ना खेलना. एनीवेज, bishop e7 is a very theoretical, very simple stuff. You develop your pieces out, your bishop would go out to f4, and also you can also develop your bishop to g5. ये एक और लाइन होगी जिसको हम देखेंगे अभी. Moves like castle, e3 with the idea of getting your bishop out. Knight bd7, you took on d5, takes, bishop d3, c6 and queen c2 खेलो, and rook e8, and you can castle. Now ऐसे positions में होता है क्या ना, you can even go for ideas where you are castling long side followed by some sort of pawn g4, sacrificing a pawn so that you can take on h7, or also you can play rook to g1. And this is a position where ideas are free flowing. Always white के पास वो position होता है ना 0.4 0.5 का advantage. It's a very, very pleasant position. You can also go standard like castles. Let's say knight back to f8, rerouting to g6. You go h3, stopping any form of bishop g4 plans, and knight g6. You drop your bishop back, bishop d6, takes, and let's say a3. You can play b4 plans, queen side पे भी खेल सकते हो, king side पे भी खेल सकते हो. A very flexible position. So this is how you put your pieces and you formulate a plan, and after exchanging your pieces, I mean, that's how a game work, right? Okay, ठीक है. So ऐसे queen's gambit को खेलते हैं against declined variations वगैरह. But if you want to spice up few things, let's say queen's gambit declined, bishop e7, you can play something like bishop to g5 as well. अब ये छोटा सा difference कितना बड़ा change create कर सकता है. Let's say we have castles, we play something like queen c2. We are not going for all these e3 plans, getting our bishop out, but we are rather going for a little bit tricky plan. Let's say अब होता क्या ना, beginner levels पे when you play like bishop g5, people would definitely play something like h6. Like pins वगैरह किसी को नहीं पसंद होता है, right? You can go in this position h4, basically sacrifice your complete bishop. Okay, अगर वो take करता है, obviously you'll take back, hit the knight. यहाँ पे actually g6 should be the best move. Give up the knight, you castle long, and takes queen e4, and this position is obviously like optically भी देखो, in general सोचो, थोड़ा calculate करो, white is definitely better even if the material is pretty much even. But ठीक है, what would happen अगर वो यहाँ पे instead of g6 he would go something like knight e4, preserving the piece. You'll take back, pawn takes, queen e4, and as early as like let's say kitne moves हैं ये, it's move number 11, you're completely winning. Like there's literally okay, obviously you can't go g6 straight away, that would hang you queen, but अगर king भागने का भी try करता है ना, you just give like some checks and it's just over in few moves, ठीक है. And अगर obviously king f7 नहीं आता है, still it's like how much, +3 का advantage, so nearly completely winning. So only a single pawn move, a bishop move could change and create such more impact into the position. Okay, now this one more opening जो कि तुम काफ़ी ज़्यादा देखने वाले अपने games के अंदर, which is the Slav defense. So you basically play c6, like एक तरीके से कारोगान खेल रहे हो, but instead of e4 you are playing against d4. So c6, I recommend going knight f3. Let's say knight f6, you develop your pieces out, knight c3, bishop f5. And जब भी एक चीज़ याद रखना, जब भी Slav defense में bishop निकलता है ना f5 पे, the b7 pawn is always weak. So you just simply go queen to b3, putting pressure over here. बहुत बार लोग queen, b6 पे खेलते हैं. And you can just suffocate your opponent by just playing c5. बहुत rarely होता है कि moves like c5 is a good move, but in here you can, obviously play c5, queen b3, a b3, e6. You play bishop f4 with the threat of bishop into b8, rook into b8, and rook takes a7. So he will play something like a6, and you can go for b4, knight bd7, b5, takes, knight takes. You can't take back the knight because your rook would be hanging. So let's say rook c8. You can just go back and life's good. You play e3, castles, b4, and तुमने पूरा position को clamp कर दिया. I mean, in this position, you can even go with moves like king to d2, play bishop d3, and trade your pieces. And obviously, you have great queen side control as well. और एक और चीज़ मैं कभी बार सजेस्ट करता हूँ, let's say if you're playing against someone who is very very higher rated, तो क्या कर सकते हो ना, तुम simplify कर सकते हो position. You can take on d5. Let's say just casually develop your pieces. You see. क्या है, knight c6, you can go bishop f4, bishop f5, e3, e6, bishop d3, takes, bishop e7, just castle, rook c1, and the position is always standard. You can draw your games. I mean, against high rated, that should be a good plan. Okay, now let's try to look at queen's Indian defense. So तुम d4 खेलते हो, let's say knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, and pawn to b6. The idea is to develop your light square bishop on b7. So let's say knight c3, let's say bishop b7 aata hai. You can just simply play queen c2, d5, you play bishop to g5, bishop e7, you can take on d5, pawn takes, e3, and your game plan again, देख रहे हो हर ओपनिंग के अंदर तुम्हारे plans and pieces positioning is very much simple. If you have open c file, you can place rook c1, you can play bishop d3 to create threats, you can always have knight e5 plans, you can always have knight b5 plans, and put pressure on the c7 pawn. And अगर तुम कभी भी चाहो अटैक करने का, then you can always go for h4, g4 sacrifice plans. But I won't recommend castling long because तुम्हारा जो c pawn है वो exist नहीं करता, right? So if you castle long, तो कभी ना कभी c5 break आ सकता है. So you don't really need to mix all those ideas all together. But अगर तुम्हें हर position के बारे में थोड़े बहुत ideas रहेंगे, you don't have a c pawn, don't castle long side. So एक ये plan रहता है. And उसके अलावा let's say bishop to b4 आता है. It's again Nimzo Indian की side में जाता है opening. Now queen c2, let's say bishop b7, a3, takes, castles, bishop g5, d6, e3, knight bd7, bishop d3, and okay, कभी भी अगर ये takes आता है, this is bad because g file open up हो जा रही है, and you can that's just bad for black. Okay, again you can go knight d2. And जो कि मैं एग्जाम्पल बता रहा था कि opening of the g file is bad. Let's say we see bishop into g2. Now rook to g1. Bishop would go back. You can castle long. You see the difference? There is a pawn on c4. So whenever we have like c5 plans, we can always go for d5. So let's say यहाँ पे the best move is king h8. You can go e4, h6 attacking the bishop. Bishop would go back. And this is all right. But अगर king h8 नहीं पता, or let's say we have a casual move like rook to e8, what would you play? We can go queen. We can drop a queen back, putting pressure on the h7 pawn. Let's say g6 आता, obviously there's a lot of pressure. You can go h4 directly, like with the plan of h5 in the future. अब देख रहे हो c5 आया, we can go h5, knight would go back, we can takes and push our pawn. तो अगर हमारा c pawn होता नहीं ना, it would have been a much more, bad condition for our, our position, whatever, you get the point, right? So pawn takes, now you play bishop f5, attacking the rook. अब देख रहे हो कितना crucial है, like the whole tempo thing. The rook has to move, rook c7, you take on d5 now, bishop को पीछे आना पड़ेगा, and you take here, rook takes. अगर तुम queen takes करते हो, then your knight would be hanging. So rook takes, you play queen f5. The knight is under attack. How do you defend it? The only thing you can probably do is rook e5, but that doesn't really help. Queen takes, knight. And this is completely winning a material up. And obviously end game में absolutely तुम destroy कर दोगे अपने opponent को, even if you're losing a pawn, but it's absolutely fine. Now let's try to look at some other openings as well. ये थोड़ा complicated stuff है. Let's say we have e6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3. We get c5. This is the semi-Tarrasch defense. And थोड़ी theories वगैरह देख लो तुम यहाँ पे. You can take on d5 obviously. Pawn takes. You go bishop to g5. Pin the knight. Let's say knight c6. You can go, e3 एक move है. Taking the knight is also a move. So let's say e3 खेलते हो. Takes. Bishop e7. You play bishop to b5. Bishop d7. Castles. एंड ये बहुत ही स्टैंडर्ड अप्रोच है. बट अगर तुम थोड़ी चीज़ें को थोड़ा और कॉम्प्लिकेट करना चाहते हो या फिर थोड़ा सा और सिंप्लीफाई भी कह सकते हो यार, इट डिपेंड्स ऑन हाउ यू लुक एट इट. यू कैन एक्चुअली प्ले समथिंग लाइक लेट्स से sorry, I think yeah, this is the move. Bishop takes on f6, queen takes. Now you can take the free pawn on d5 attacking the queen. The queen has to go back. You can play something like e4, defend कर अपने knight को. Pawn takes d4, bishop to b5, pin the knight. Now let's say we have a check. Queen d2. You have to take the queen and this is the position we have to work with. But अगर तुम नहीं लेते हो और तुम free में bishop को लेते हो, then there is obviously knight c7 and that's a lovely fork. You are hitting the king and also the queen. And see, this position looks bad for black. Let's be honest, guys. ठीक है, तो ये था semi-Tarrasch. Now let's look at Ragozin defense. Now this is the opening I usually like to play अगर कोई मेरे against Queen's Gambit खेल ले with the white pieces. Okay, so we play e6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, bishop b4. The Queen's Gambit declined Ragozin defense. The opening I really like to play. अब मैंने इसके अंदर एक बहुत ही fancy variation निकाला जो कि मैंने बहुत बार पहले भी दिखाया होगा I guess in some of my videos. Let's say you go with bishop to g5, pinning the knight. There is d into c4, e4, c5 attacking the pawn. You take back on c4, cd4, knight d4, queen a5. Now you're threatening the bishop. And also there is a hell lot of pressure on the knight on c3. Okay, a very simple move would be dropping a bishop back to d2. Or you can go into this variation, a fancy variation where you take on f6. Bishop into c3, bc3, queen c3 check. Now, queen d2 mat khel dena yaar because that would hang your rook on a1. So, king f1. Now, any decent person would think queen takes c4, that's a check. And getting back the bishop is a great move. But you guys are more than decent. So, queen c4 check ke baad, after king g1, if you take the bishop, it's actually losing to rook c1. Agar rook c1 aata hai, you have to take. If you play something like queen b4, there is obviously rook c8, king e7, rook h8, and that's pretty bad. So, यहाँ पे पता है क्या line आती है? I'll show you. After king g1, you have to play bishop d7. Why? Now rook c1, you don't have rook c8 anymore. So let's say rook c1, you go queen b4, bishop g7, rook g8, bishop f6, rook g6, you play a3. If you take this, there is knight b5 attacking the queen. If you take on b5, there is queen d8 mate. And also there is knight c7 which you can't stop and that's losing. So queen a3, bad move. You have to go queen back to d6. E5 attacking the queen, also defending our bishop. Queen to d5, threatening a checkmate. You play f3, knight aata hai c6 where knight takes, bishop takes, queen d5, bishop d5, king f2. And trust me guys, after king d7, rook d1, I had games is position tak. So, I mean not once, a couple of times. So people do play these kind of openings as well. So yeah, ये थी आज की थियरीज. आई बिलीव तुम लोगों को सही लगा होगा. सही लगा तो डोंट फॉरगेट टू स्मैश दैट लाइक बटन. एंड ऑल्सो आई वुड बी एडिंग ऑल दीज लाइन्स जो मैंने वीडियोज़ में दिखाई है. आई वुड ड्रॉप अ स्टडी लिंक. सो इफ़ यू गाइज वॉन्ट टू गो थ्रू इट, रमेश अराउंड, चेक आउट ऑल दीज लाइन्स, तुम देख सकते हो. यू कैन evaluate and do all those analysis stuff as well. So yeah, subscribe कर देना, वीडियो को लाइक कर देना. And yeah, now let's jump right into the games. Okay, so I just played one game against Amarnath bhai. It was a 3 minute game. मैं live record कर सकता था, but video already काफी ज़्यादा बड़ी हो रही थी, so I will just go straight into the game, okay, analysis and stuff. So I opened the game with 1d4, d5, c4. We had the queen's gambit declined on the board. Knight मेरा f3 पे गया, knight f6, knight c3, and we had the bishop e7, the kind of a standard main line with bishop f4 castles. I also could have tried going for bishop g5 plan, but thoda simple raha is game mein. We played e3, knight bd7, took on d5, and instead of taking back with the pawn, he took back with the knight, which was a decent move. Knight d5, e d5, bishop to d3, and g6. So जो मेरा potential pressure plan था h7 पे threat करने का, he played g6 कुछ पहले ही. I castled c6, knight e5, exchanging the knights and stuff. He went with knight f6, h3 खेला मैंने, stopping all sort of bishop g4 plans. हालांकि कुछ और moves खेल सकता था, maybe something along the lines of bishop h6. That could have been a plan, but ठीक है. h3, king g7 आया, a3 stopping bishop b4 infiltrations, bishop to d6, and I played queen to f3. अब वो knight e4 पे जाता है. I took the knight, pawn takes, queen takes, and f5 attacking my queen. I dropped my queen back d3. He played queen to e7. I played rook d1, takes, king जाता है g8 पे. Now I played f4. अब इस bishop को यहाँ से हटाना is very very tough. I am currently a pawn up, but again opposite color bishop endgames usually draw होते हैं, so I had to come up with a good plan. He went bishop b6, great move, stopping my d5 plan. I went b4, bishop to d5, queen c3, p6, rook c1. अब यहाँ पे मुझे pressure build करना है, so he played a5. I pushed my pawns, rook c8. I don't know, rook c8 seems like a move जहाँ से चीज़ें थोड़े down होनी start हुई. I took the pawn, rook takes. I brought my queen back to b2, takes, and queen e6, which allowed rook c7 followed by rook c8, takes, and he dropped the pawn on b6. अब a4 खेल के completely lost था. After queen f6, there's not much of a move. I gave few checks, I collect few pawns, and यहाँ पे queen straight हो गई. Later on, it was a matter of technique. Obviously, we had low, very little time on the clock, barely, 10 seconds. And I shuffled my king. And after a few moves, he actually, blended his bishop. And yeah, I won the game. Otherwise, I would have pushed and I would have made a queen. So yeah, ये थी आज वाली video, ये थी आज वाली game. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and let me know in the comments कि तुम ऐसी और videos different openings के ऊपर देखना चाहते हो या नहीं. Anyways, that's it. Discord server join कर लेना, ping me over there if you want to volunteer and stuff. And yeah, that's it. Kate Gaming signing off. Goodbye. Peace.